here's my question for you, given all that we've just discussed, which is only scratching the surface of the Joe Biden, Hunter Biden story. What about Barack Obama? Where's he? He's been awfully silent on this. This is his administration. You know damn well he fully knew what Hunter Biden was doing. You know, if your vice president's son is sitting on the Ukrainian board, you guys are pushing to have investigated.
But for 20 years, you've had Obama and George W. Bush's Department of Justice go easy on this guy. They didn't fully investigate the case. They didn't show any curiosity about the case. And now Donald J. Trump is asking his Department of Justice to show full transparency. And somehow that's a criticism of Donald J. Trump and not Barack Obama and George W. Bush.
What we have today is part of Political Detox's saga. And I want to take the next 5 seconds or so to encourage everyone to hit that thumbs up and subscribe as part of our drive to hit 500 subscribers. Go ahead. I'll wait, and you can always recall and reverse that action. And we want to encourage you all to watch this video to the end.
Barack Obama's myth of hope and change collapses under Megyn Kelly and J.D. Vance's brutal takedown. They rip through the polished speeches, the empty promises, and the self-serving legacy of a man who sold America charisma instead of results. From foreign policy blunders to domestic failures, from party collapse to personal hypocrisy, Obama's image crumbles into dust. What remains is not a visionary leader, but a cautionary tale of branding over substance, and the illusion finally shatters.
That Brennan, who was running CIA under Obama, was confronted by a CIA officer about the flaws in the dossier. The guy was like, dude, we can't rely on this. Can't use this to say there was aspiration to help Trump. We shouldn't be sticking it in the annex to our report, or relying on it in any way. This needs to come out. It's fatally flawed. Brennan allegedly said, quote, yes, but doesn't it ring true? Holy cow.
Senator Vance, in Pittsburgh on Thursday, former President Barack Obama admonished black men for being hesitant about voting for Kamala Harris. I was wondering if you could contrast your approach to hesitant voters and how you tried to earn them over.
You know, first of all, I don't believe, whether you agree with me or disagree with me, whether you agree with Donald Trump or disagree with him, I don't believe in hectoring voters. I believe in persuading voters.
If you're enjoying this video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Barack Obama has been called everything from a genius to a messiah. Megyn Kelly and J.D. Vance tear into him, the illusion collapses fast. The so-called golden boy of American politics gets stripped down to what he always was. A master of performance who turned branding into an art form and left behind a legacy of speeches, selfies, and very little else. For years, his supporters worshipped him as if he were untouchable, a flawless icon beyond reproach. But Kelly and Vance take a sledgehammer to that myth, and what's left is an empty shell of hype.
More fuel on the fire that there's a potential, maybe a divorce or some sort of rockiness going on in the Obamas' relationship. They both posted these mirrored, very choreographed Valentine's Day messages on X, but he was just seen at an LA, the basketball team, the Clippers, thank you, game without her. And then on Tuesday, he was spotted eating out at a fancy dinner in Sherman Oaks with both daughters, Malia and Sasha, but again, no Michelle, according to TMZ.
Obama was sold as the leader who would heal America, the one who promised unity, hope, and change. But Vance reminds everyone that the only thing Obama truly changed was the way people thought about political marketing. His greatest achievement wasn't policy, but self-promotion. His presidency was a masterclass in how to sell the American people on substance. J.D. Vance piles on by pointing out how Obama's smooth delivery and calm demeanor disguised the reality. A man who avoided tough fights, ran from accountability, and left behind a trail of disappointments.
Your support is not something I'm given or something I'm owed. It's something you got to go out there and work for. So one, I just don't like the tone of going in. I mean, look, the better question for Barack Obama or anybody to ask is not why black men, it's not how dare you not vote for Kamala Harris. It's maybe they're thinking about voting for Donald Trump because they're sick of being censored. They're sick of being told what to do.
Obama's genius wasn't leadership. It was branding himself as larger than life. He didn't govern. He auditioned for history. Every speech was staged like a TED Talk. Every photo curated like an Instagram influencer before Instagram existed. Megyn Kelly calls him the politician who never stopped running for office, even while in the Oval Office. J.D. Vance underscores it with the simple truth. The Obama legacy is a mirage, a carefully packaged product that fell apart once people stopped swooning over the delivery.
Pulled them all into the White House. They had a big meeting. And then literally the next day, they were like, Russia interfered to help Trump, and leaked it to all the reporters, Washington Post. And the suggestion is that Obama turned to them and said, I'm not having a report coming out of you guys saying that they didn't interfere. Our whole narrative is that Hillary would have won had it not been for the Russians. Now, give me a report that says that. That's the implication. And that then the intel community did it.
Look at the record. Obama's healthcare law was sold as transformational, but ended up as a bureaucratic nightmare with broken promises. People were told they could keep their doctors, keep their plans, and watch premiums fall, but millions found the opposite. Kelly tears into the arrogance of selling the country on a dream that collapsed under its own contradictions. J.D. Vance adds that Obama's obsession with his so-called signature achievement left him blind to the damage it inflicted on working families. Instead of fixing a broken system, he layered on more complexity, more cost, and more chaos, all while bragging about his own brilliance.
The Comeys and the Brennans of the world, of course, you got to follow the law. You can only prosecute people when they actually broke the law, but we know that a lot of people broke the law in the last administration, and they've got to face real justice, not just words, not just getting hauled before a committee in Capitol Hill. If people broke the law, they have to actually be prosecuted for it, because I think that if they do that, if they know that the consequence for breaking the law is go to jail, then the next generation of Democrats, they're not going to try the same.
And that's just domestic policy. Obama's foreign policy was marketed as enlightened, intellectual, the antidote to cowboy diplomacy. But what did it deliver? The rise of ISIS, the disaster in Libya, a so-called pivot to Asia that went nowhere. J.D. Vance doesn't mince words. Obama left behind a global stage more chaotic than he found it. His approach to the Middle East was naive at best, reckless at worst. Kelly points out the absurdity of a president who was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize before he'd accomplished a single thing, only to spend the next 8 years presiding over drone wars, red line embarrassments, and foreign policy blunders that cost lives and credibility. Even his vaunted ability to inspire came with a price. Obama was brilliant at speeches, but words don't fix broken systems, and slogans don't build bridges. He promised unity, but America came out of his presidency more divided than ever. He claimed to transcend race, yet he left behind racial tensions that only deepened. Kelly drives the knife in by noting how Obama built his career on lofty promises but never delivered the unity he preached. J.D. Vance twists it further, pointing out that for all the talk of hope, despair grew louder, distrust in government worsened, and faith in institutions eroded on his watch.
If you want to criticize the people who aren't showing full transparency, you ought to go after the administrations that went easy on Jeffrey Epstein, the administrations that concealed this case for 20 years, and the administrations that failed to show full transparency. Donald J. Trump, I'm telling you, he's got nothing to hide. His administration has got nothing to hide, and that's why he's been an advocate for full transparency in this case. He's going to keep on being an advocate for full transparency, but while we're focused on that case, Donald J. Trump is also worried about making sure these great workers get more take-home pay and better jobs.
Obama perfected the art of talking down to the American people while pretending to uplift them. He loved being the smartest guy in the room, the professor-in-chief who always had the final word. But Kelly sees through the act. It wasn't wisdom, it was condescension dressed up as intellect. Obama was never treated like a politician, he was treated like a brand, a celebrity, a cultural phenomenon. People didn't just vote for him, they worshipped him. But what happens when the spotlight fades? What happens when the speeches stop and the promises are weighed against reality? J.D. Vance answers it. You're left with a legacy built on sand. You're left with a politician who excelled at being adored, but failed at being effective.
I'm going to tee it up with this soundbite from the vice president who gave an interview to the Gateway Pundit and said as follows, SOT 15.
I think the only thing the far left really responds to is power. The thing that they're actually going to be responsive to is the recognition that there are consequences on the other side. If they get off scot-free, if they're never investigated, if they're never prosecuted when they violated the law, then they're just going to come back and do the exact same thing again. And there are a few different ways, of course. So it's the big tech companies that were censoring conservatives. They've got to know that's not going to be allowed. And they're
The brutal truth Kelly reveals is that Obama's presidency wasn't a triumph of progress. It was a cautionary tale of how easily America can be sold on charisma. He wasn't a revolutionary, he was a marketer. He wasn't a builder, he was a performer. He wasn't the future, he was a detour. And now, years later, the damage of his hollow leadership still lingers. From foreign crises to domestic divisions, from economic struggles to cultural fractures, Obama's fingerprints are everywhere, and not in the way his admirers like to remember. By the end of their takedown, Obama isn't the flawless statesman of history books. He's the man who perfected the art of presentation and failed the test of substance. The one who left America dazzled but not improved. The one who spoke of hope but delivered disillusionment. Kelly and Vance strip away the last layers of myth, leaving a portrait of Obama that is brutally honest and painfully clear. He was never the savior, just the salesman. What remains is a simple conclusion. Barack Obama will be remembered not as the transformative leader he claimed to be, but as the cautionary tale of a politician who believed that speeches could replace solutions, that branding could stand in for vision, and that history would forgive a legacy built on air.
That intelligence community assessment of January 17 was set to downplay Russian interference in the 2016 election. And then after a meeting with Obama and the top intelligence community officials, or at Obama's direction at least, the intelligence community did a complete 180 and played up Russian interference instead of playing it down. And we learned
he wants to be remembered as a statesman, a thinker, a man above the petty bickering of politics. But Kelly cuts through the act. Obama isn't above the fray, he's responsible for it. His presidency created the divisions he now pretends to lecture about fixing. His arrogance shaped the culture of politics he now criticizes. The real brutality of Kelly and Vance's destruction lies in this final truth. Obama's story is a warning, not an inspiration. He is proof that charisma without substance is dangerous, that speeches without solutions corrode trust, that style without results is worse than failure. It's betrayal. Obama didn't fail because he lacked opportunity. He failed because he believed his own hype. He thought history would bend to his words, that applause was the same as progress, and that branding was a substitute for vision. By the end, the myth of Barack Obama is in ruins. Kelly and Vance don't leave scraps for historians to polish. They reduce the image of America's so-called great orator to rubble. No longer the icon of hope, no longer the untouchable symbol, Obama stands exposed as the politician who promised transformation but delivered disappointment, who chased history but stumbled into mediocrity, who wanted to be remembered as a giant but will be recalled as a warning sign.